spirits, welcome back to another episode of the Flying Upstream podcast. What if the version of success you've been chasing isn't really yours? Today on Flying Upstream, we're diving into what it means to break free from expectations, deconstruct identities that no longer serve you, and live in full alignment with your unique design. My guest today walked away from the high achieving corporate career to create a life and a business built on authenticity, purpose, and energetic alignment. This conversation will take us from astrology's big life cycles in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, all the way to the power of human design to help you lead with clarity and confidence. Becky, why don't you introduce yourself to us today?
Oh, thanks, Louisa. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Becky, and I am the founder of a company called The Conscious Revolution. So, as Louisa was telling you a little bit, I did come from a corporate background. I was doing project management and consulting. I was doing it for over 15 years. And even though it looked really successful on the outside, I was managing multi-million-dollar programs of work and some of the biggest transformation projects in Australia. Like slowly inside, my soul was wilting, and I was always a very spiritual person. And, I was always wearing the mask at work. You couldn't be out, being spiritual at work. So that was one mask. I found out that I had ADHD. I had to hide that. There was another mask, and then I was gay. Couldn't be gay at that time. So there was another mask, and constantly just trying to be the version of success that everyone and all the expectations were. And basically, I was constantly searching for my purpose because I thought all the time, if I knew what my purpose was, I would walk away from all of this and I would just do it. And it was a real, eye opener from doing all this work and being so separate from myself that I started to realize it was more about needing to find myself again and going deep within. Doing the personal development and the spiritual work was great, but not integrating all of that. And I had so much more work I had to do and figure out for myself to be able to figure out my purpose. So many people think it's, if they had the clarity and somebody just told them what they needed to do, they would just do it. But it's really an inside job. And for me, it was, I'm a human design coach now. I'm a life purpose coach. But how it all came was just divine intervention, really. It's just like being open and really seeing the signs as signs everywhere and following the breadcrumbs to get out of it was really the key in me discovering my purpose and using all of my gifts. And it just evolved over time. And one day during COVID, I just basically decided to when I was in COVID, all my friends were losing their jobs, basically. And so what I did was a whinge and wine session where we were all locked down, grabbed a glass of wine. I started to realize all my friends were losing their jobs. They were being made redundant. They were so unhappy. And all these downloads started to happen because I've got the project management and the startup experience. I was like, wow, like I know what these people could do with it, and just started to get really creative and started to help people to create their own businesses that were fully in alignment with them. And I realized that's what I was meant to do. So one day I just quit my job and I thought, let's just see where this takes me. And 5.5 years later, here I am. So now I'm doing life purpose coaching, transformation coaching, purpose-driven consulting as well, and all using human design as well. So
I love that. I love that. I have a lot of questions, but
sure.
something very interesting. So I don't know if I shared, but the listeners know I went through a spiritual awakening. That's how I got here, amongst all of the million things that happened throughout that process, as you
Sure.
know. And I want to ask this question because I realize it's so different for everyone and it can help so many people. You said follow the breadcrumbs. What was that for you? What were the breadcrumbs for you? What did
Uh,
you start to notice?
it's interesting because when I was, it's usually something that happens to all of us is a major event where something like, if you're into tarot, what we call a tower moment. It's like one of my coaches used to say, and I love this line, like the universe either tickles you with a feather or punches you in the face. It's like these like nudges to start with, and it's like you start to see that you're supposed to be doing something else, but ignore it because the ego mind's trying to keep you safe in where you are. Like, why would you leave a job that you're getting, paid so well for? And started with the end of a relationship. So then I wanted to do more work on myself, and here I was thinking that I needed to figure out what it was that next thing that I really wanted to do with my life. But I realized when I was getting those signs and opening up again to my intuitive nudges, it's not your time yet. You need to work on yourself. And going deeper within and realizing all the things that I've been through in my career, in my relationships, and all those things, the story was still forming, right? And it was those things that you start to realize is every single shard of you and all those parts of you make the whole. And it's not one little thing, but that's the things that people are struggling with to try and help people with. And so those signs, it's like you might meet a person like out of the blue somewhere that connects you to the right person. You're right. And for me, I was working with this coach and I thought she was going to get me clarity. But really what she did was, without even knowing it, she threw me on my butt basically. And like, I was like, people think this transformation is about that butterfly that comes, that transforms, and it's this beautiful process, right? And I felt like I was a snake shedding my skin and I was naked, it's like a deer in headlights. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this. But that was key to really uncovering the layers of all the things that were going on, that I wasn't allowing myself to go there to try and go deeper into what was going on within myself. And once I started to fix that and grow my new skin, it's like I was open to where life was taking me, and I could see the signs instead of getting punched in the face again with another thing going against where I was meant to go. And it just led to the right people, the right opportunities. And finally I heard the call really loudly, and I knew it was my time to step up.
I love that. I love that. And I will share, mine was a punch in the face. Mine was a punch in the face that sat me down, brought me back up, and it was, oh, I love
Messy,
talking
right?
about that. And I love that you share it like that, because that is, I do, in my experience, and just from all of our guests, is that seems to be the way it happens. If you're paying attention enough, you get the feather tickle and you can kind of wake up, and it's a beautiful, that butterfly, experience that a lot of people think it is. But for most of us, we get that punch for a lot of us. You mentioned, hiding parts of yourself. And that also, another point that I wanted to make about what you said is, I think we try to hide parts of ourselves that, during, at least for me, during my own spiritual awakening, that wasn't an option anymore. I was forced to look within.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we try to hide those parts of ourselves, and I call them shadow aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you do this work. How is that, like, how is hiding those parts of yourself contributing to how much longer it takes to sort of shed that old skin in your experience as a coach?
Yeah, it's really interesting. If you go through if anyone out there does psychology, you would know this. It starts as children, so we start to learn at a very young age. It's about a survival skill, and the ego mind is forming when we're very young, whether we're looking to the mother figure, the father figure, and how things operate in the world, and we start to learn how to survive. So if you're in a hostile environment, like some people will fight, some people flight, some people freeze, and it's all those things that keep you alive. And you realize that that's how you need to cope, your coping strategies. It becomes part of your unconscious way, or it's in the subconscious, but then the ego starts to know that's what I need to do to keep me safe. And it comes out as stories, and you can catch yourself in how you speak, but you need to have a bit of self-awareness to know when to tap yourself, right? But even the things when we beat ourselves up, or we tell us, you hear a million times that people think you're stupid, or, at school, or whatever those things are, you start taking on that identity. Oh, that must be me. And then it's almost like, some people pretend to be stupid to get what they want. It can even come from that. And it's like they may or may not realize that they're doing it, but it starts at a very young age. So by the time we're adults and we start to really look into this, and whatever that incident is that then doesn't keep us safe anymore, it takes us out of that place where, like we were saying, that punch in the face can be health, it can be a breakup, you can lose your home, your job, all those things. It takes something massive for you to go, oh my gosh, like you're in that survival mode to survive again, to try and rebuild. Whereas if we could see those things earlier, and honestly, like for me, I get asked sometimes, like, what would you do different in education? I would start training these kids from a very young age when their brain is still forming, so they can see what they're doing at a very young age, So you're not doing it for the next 30 years before you have to go back again to figure out what it was that was going on. It's such a huge thing. And so it just really depends on, like a lot of the next generation coming up. I think they're more open to all of this. Like we didn't have this growing up. So they might get the tools or the techniques earlier. But a lot of the time when you're in your 30 plus, 40 plus years, it's a huge journey to actually start figuring out what you've been doing unconsciously all these years.
Yeah, and a little bit more resistance I have found too than if you
100%.
were to learn it younger. Um, Talking about the different stages in life and like 30s and stuff, you and I talked about astrology points as part of like the major turning points in our lives, like the changes like we mentioned that surface around the age of 30. Can you share from like an astrological perspective,
Yeah.
like is that for everyone? What happens? What does that look like? What did it look like for you?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's something interesting that I wish I knew human design before I went into my 30s and 40s, because it's such an amazing tool. And human design does mix in with astrology. So, what happens is obviously when we're born, we've all got a birth date, and so when we're hitting the first big hurdle like that is when the Saturn return comes around, and Saturn is all about it's like like if you look at it, it's about discipline, and it's about like breaking karmic things that are happening to you. It's about really what's going on in that stage. What I like to call in the 30s is the shake up, right? That's what I term it. And I think that anyone who's been through it to the other side, I see it as a rite of passage, especially from going into adulthood. So anything that is meant to fall away as you're going into that phase of your life is going to come as that punch in the face, the first one, right? And so most people I speak to can actually look, it starts slightly before 30s, but the theme keeps happening through your 30s. And that's what human design can give you, the theme. Everyone goes through a Saturn return, but everyone's life lessons or what they're meant to actually learn out of this experience is going to be different. And you can discover that through human design. But so the shake up, for me, when I was in my late 20s, it was the GFC at the time. So I actually didn't know it was coming. I went all in on buying a house, everything, like I threw everything at it. And then I lost my job due to the GFC. The house wasn't built yet, and I had to pay for it in stages plus rent. I went through a breakup with who I thought was going to be my partner for life. My health deteriorated. So I got the whole whammy, the whole gamut of it. I was so stressed and burnt out, and it took me another 2 months to find a job. I had to move back home with my parents, which was the most devastating thing I thought, to try and work it out. So I felt like my whole life collapsed. And on top of that, all my friendships didn't make sense anymore. Some people might realize that because they're becoming this new person, all those shallow things, or, people who, superficial things start to go, is this really where I belong? And you don't know who you're becoming at that whole shedding piece is that first piece. And had I known then, this happens kind of to everyone, how gold would that be? That would be amazing to go, wow, this is just a phase of life that we're meant to go through. And it's helping us step into that next purpose and anchoring in the foundations of adulthood. Right? That's amazing. And then the theme of that you can figure out through your human design, because it will be different for everyone. And it's something I give in my life purpose readings to people as well, is that you can figure out what's going on. The 40s I call is the wake up. So what happens is Uranus does a 180 in the sky. It's like an opposition, what it's called from an astrology perspective. But that's kind of like when we're looking for our North Star. We start figuring out that, all these things, I've been climbing the ladder, and it's usually a lot of people will be like, I'm so miserable at my job. You've had a bit of status. You've probably got the relationship. You've probably got the kids, and you're like, there's got to be something more than this. And again, it's like an identity check-in. It's like, I don't even know who the hell I am anymore. What am I meant to be doing? Where do I belong, right? And that's usually the calling of, it's time to step into purpose, right? And so that will come and usually hits between 38 and 42, those feelings. But that's the theme of that. Again, you can figure out through human design what your North Star is and what you're supposed to be achieving. So I just went through that before I found human design. And then I found out, I was like, wow, I'm literally doing what I'm meant to be doing. Had I had that, I would have gotten there a lot quicker, right? I would have, it would have been a map to guide me where I was meant to be going. And so for anyone who's in their 50s, this is when you do a Chiron return. And Chiron's like the wounded healer. So your biggest wins, where you think that you've been through it all, you've seen all, it's like the layers of the onions will come to show you your deepest wound. But this is the stage I call the rise up. And the rise up is all about then taking your biggest wounds and turning it into your, like from wounded warrior to healer, I say, but the transformation that you do is how you're meant to step up as a leader and guide through life after that.
I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah, so that's the phases. So yes, everyone will have a Chiron return, a Saturn return, the Uranus thing happening, and then a second Saturn return through your 60s. But the themes of what that is, you can figure out the next lay down with human design.
I love that. So it sounds like working with you as a human design coach would help someone understand not just how to live in alignment, right? Not just like the phases that they're going through, but it also gives them that ease of understanding that that's going to come. This is what's next.
This is what's next. This is what you might be in right now to figure out how to work with this decade, where you were. But all of those pieces, like I was saying, there's like shards of all of you everywhere to make the whole, to figure out how you were designed as a human this lifetime to operate in this world. And when you know that everything, if you know, is about you chose this life, you chose to be in this, you chose the experiences, the life lessons you wanted to learn, limiting beliefs, fears that you're meant to overcome, and your life purpose and your unique gifts and your strengths that you're meant to give to the world. All of this is nicely bundled in human design. So it's, for me, it's the most powerful modality on the planet we have at the moment to self-discovery and awareness, but also how you can gift, like understand yourself is the first key, but then everything that you're meant to give to the world as well. So I love it. And it's so potent to be able to, even for me, I feel like now one of the biggest gifts that I can give people are those phases. What crises and challenges you're going through right now can be explored through this, and then what you're meant to be doing with it.
I love that. So, for our listeners who want to take the first step, what's one simple practice that they can do today to reconnect with their energy and with their design, with their human design?
So you can get a free chart, like, and I promise you, like everyone who opens this and they look at their chart, they're like, oh my God, this is so much information. I don't know what to do with this. However, if you're curious, what you can do is you can go to a site called mybodygraph.com, and you just need your birth details. It's your time, place, and date of birth. When you put it in, you'll get your chart. There's so much information, and honestly, I've been studying it for 4 or 5 years now, but like I'm still constantly evolving and learning more and going deep with it. So the best thing you can do for yourself is, yes, there is a lot of information out there, but I do offer readings, 90-minute in-depth readings as well, if you want to go deeper, whether it's around, you know, you want to know your life purpose, whether you're in business and you want to figure out how to build an aligned business, the shadow readings. So if you're going through challenges of transformation and things that keep coming up, you can see that as well. And I've also got for your listeners a free guide. So when you download the chart, you can see what type you are. And then I've got a free human design guidebook where you can actually go in and dive deeper into your particular type, so it's not so overwhelming as well.
I love that. You're like giving us the whole key. It's like, if you're curious, here are all of the tools. So I hope everyone goes and downloads that. I know that when I got my own chart, my human design chart for the first time, it was literally life changing. I understood so much about myself. And not only was it like self awareness, but a lot of self acceptance. Do you experience that
Yes.
with the people you work with?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's, you know, a lot of people feel like it's like I've just given them a manual to how they're supposed to operate, but some people really feel like when I'm speaking their language, it's like a key to their soul. And so some people, you know, there are some people like, oh, I'm not sure about that, or I don't know, but it's like the layers of when you read it versus, you know, for me, I'm very intuitive. So when I'm actually working with the people, I find the right words that can actually, you know, for them to be able to hear what they need to hear at that particular point in time. So it really does help. You can do a lot of self-study, and believe me, there's so much out there, and there's so many workshops you can do. But it's the old language of human design is very, it's not archaic, but it's a bit depressing as well. So if you go to the traditional one, it can seem like gloom and doom. versus, when you actually, it's like anything that you try, and if you study the Kabbalah, even the Bible, when you read, it's quite archaic. But then if you find somebody who translates it and it's music to your ears, it's on the right frequency of what you need to hear. So yeah, it's basically finding those people that align with you, that you resonate with, that can actually give you the keys into what you need to hear for yourself as well. But definitely when you start to understand that everything has, there's not good or bad. It's just when you're in a higher frequency and a lower frequency of a part of your chart, and how to find that alignment and balance. So, but it's the acceptance of, this is how I'm designed to be, and I'm supposed to experience the whole gamut. It's not just all the positive. And it's just like, oh, like if you're actually somebody who is a people pleaser, for instance, and you know that about yourself, but there's part of your design that you've asked to experience that, so you can get the transformation of what's on the other side of that, to be able to have those healthy boundaries and self-love, and to be able to help others through those kinds of things. You go, wow, I needed to see that part of myself, and it is part of myself, and I accept that part of myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it.
It's so beautiful. And that's the polarity of this human experience, in my opinion, is, embracing those parts of ourselves that sometimes we wish we, weren't there. But that is where the transformation happens. And I will say, working with someone who's a human design coach, in my experience, it was really transformative, because the chart, first glance, just as you explained, it was extremely overwhelming. But when you take the time, one of the things that a couple of the things that shifted for me was, just for listeners, if you haven't experienced human design, um, one of the things that shifted is the way I make decisions. The human design taught me how, I'm supposed to make decisions, and it was something that I was like afraid of. So it's not like it was the first time that I was hearing that. It was
Mm-hmm.
something that I knew how to do, but I was afraid to do. But it was my design to do that. And another thing is, it also, in making decisions, human design was so powerful in teaching me how to make decisions without like judging myself for it.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because honestly, for me, I find that that's where our intuitive superpower lives in our body, and each person has a different intuitive superpower. So once you know whether you're supposed to trust your emotions or your gut or your instincts, or what that is in that moment, to say yes or no to big decisions in your life, and understanding all of us are intuitive, but it's the body trying to tell us, and for different people, rather than the mind. So anytime you think I must do, have to do, should do, that's the mind coming in and taking over, like trying to take over, for instance, like with me leaving my job. If I'd listened to that to keep me safe, I would never have gotten to this. But how long I was doing that for, right?
Yeah.
So mine is are you a generator? Manifesting generator. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, it's on you, right? So I'm a
That
manifesting
was
generator.
good.
On you, yeah. And for us, right, it's all about that sacral, like what lights us up, like what says a hell yes to something or a hell no. But for instance, with us, what's going to happen is, you might feel excited about something and you definitely want to do something, but then your brain's going, Louisa, what are you doing? You got this safe job out there, you're getting money. Like, why would you go and do something like that? And your body's screaming, because it just lights me up, And that's the tickle and the punch almost as well. If we bring it back to that, the more you listen to the mind and go against your design, the more out of alignment you're going to be. And all these train wreck things can happen in your life until you start listening.
Yes, yes. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love everything that you shared. And for someone, as we get ready to wrap up here,
Mm-hmm.
you shared so many beautiful tools. And but for someone who may not recognize it, that they're like living out of alignment, there's the tickle. There's something that doesn't feel right, but they may not recognize fully that they're living out of alignment with their human design. How can they reframe the way that they're looking at it to be able to determine whether or not they're out of alignment with their design?
Yeah, so there's a few different types, but what I'm going to say is, anything that feels like struggle, that is stressful, if you're anxious, if you're burnt out, all of these are signs. The first signs, the burnout is usually the last at the end of the row, when you can't even get out of bed anymore. So whether that looks like, you're completely sick and you've got chronic fatigue, or all those things, that's going against everything that is out of alignment for yourself. And so there's signs along the way the tickles of this isn't quite right. It might feel like, for generators, frustration. For some, it might feel like resentment. For some, it might feel like disappointment, and keep going to push against that feeling. Versus when you're in a higher frequency, for us as generators, manifesting generators, that's fulfillment and, for satisfaction. For others, it's what feels like success internally. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's that lighter feeling all the time, whether you're making the correct decisions for yourself and going with the right things and not, that's when usually everything in life starts to unravel. So for me, what I usually say about how it starts and we start ignoring it because it's slight, that little tickle, is when people think about their life and they're living at about a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 is not bad. Cruise, I don't need to do anything. I'm not in pain. I'm better than most, but it's like, are you enjoying your life? It's like, yeah, it could be better. And we don't feel or deserve that we deserve that 10, but everyone deserves that 10. We're here for the 10, right? So when it starts to be 7 and you don't really talk about things because everything's okay, I've got nothing to complain about, that's where it starts. Until it goes further down to you're stressed, you're, anxious, you're burnt out, all those things is out of alignment. We're not meant to be here to be broke. We're not meant to be in pain. We're not meant to be sick. It's not the experience we came for. And so that's completely when we're out of alignment with our design.
I love that so much. It's a beautiful way to end the episode. And for everyone listening, we're going to link the freebies, the amazing freebies that Becky has given for our listeners today. And I really, speaking out of my own experience, I really do encourage everyone to go get your chart, use her tool, and reach out to her. Working with a human design coach in my own experience and a transformational coach has been so life changing. So reach out to Becky if you want to experience anything related to this. Becky, thank you so much for being on today. This has been amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's been great speaking to you and your audience.
Of course. And for you, Free Spirit, if this episode sparked something in you, I invite you to continue your journey with us on flyingupstreampodcast.com, where you'll find resources, episodes, and ways to connect more deeply with this community of seekers, leaders, and change makers. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream. Until next time.